What was it?
What was it? So, trying to get in this place. I do this for a living and I'm so nervous. So I am going to basically, I am working on a book, I guess? This is an excerpt from the book. To give you some context, I will be talking about the way cishet black men affect the way queer black men see themselves, and talking more about toxic masculinity and black boy joy. Right. So this piece is called Paul. Oh. Well, I'm deeply flattered, but you're not my type. A word that I learned to become deeply connected to. It was a word that I had heard once the first time I logged on to xy.com, a place where I thought my queer black body would find solace in a world that always categorized my existence. And this wouldn't be the first time that I was body slammed into a metaphorical box. There was the one time at Rage in West Hollywood when I walked over to the cute guy standing on the wall and asked him to dance, and he laughed in my face. The one time that I asked a guy to dance down at Ripples in San Diego, and when I asked him for his number, he gently chuckled and said, you know, I actually don't date big guys. Let us not forget the one time I cried myself to sleep leaving Oasis nightclub in Upland, California, because a guy walked past me to go ask my friend to dance. Denunciation in rare form. I was in fact a type. The type of queer man that other cis-normative men had learned to fear. The rejection I faced throughout most of my days on the boulevard of broken dreams wasn't unusual. Desperate, thirsty, miserable. All things that men had used to describe me. All words I had learned to internalize. All words that described the yearning I had for Paul. Because I loved Paul. Because I wanted and I needed Paul. Wait, I loved the idea of Paul. I needed something that Paul could not give me. See, Paul was a trained magician. Here today, gone today. Never in one place for too long. His light brown eyes, smooth voice, caramel brown skin, and scent of Michael Jordan cologne kept people enamored, but it also kept people hurt. His mother, his first wife, his first daughter, my mother, my brother, and of course me. Paul was a master manipulator who kept everyone on long leashes of pain and sadness. So close but distant, a master illusionist, always fine-tuning the master of his craft. Paul's magic found my mother in 1984 in a roller rink in Inglewood, California, a place where all young Black Jehovah's Witnesses would congregate on the weekends. After a year of what my mother said was courtship, Paul and my mother were married with a young baby boy. 5 years later, they would be divorced, leaving my mother to take care of her then 5-year-old son, Jonathan, and her 3-year-old son, Bubba. One Saturday afternoon, I could hear my mother from the kitchen yelling for my brother to hurry up and pack. Where's your shoes, Justin? You always do this. Wait for the last damn minute to do what I asked you to do. I stood there looking outside the dusty black screen door, hoping and waiting to hear the sound of a classic Porsche come up the street and turn the corner. It had almost been 3 years since the divorce, and my brother and I were elated with the idea that Paul was finally reaching out after spending 2 years in county jail. He called us here and there to tell us what movie he was going to be in, told us what celebrities he was hanging out with, and what celebrities we would meet once we got over to his house. Paul told us a lot of things that day, including that he would be there around 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The thing is that he never came. Paul's master skill was lying. He had lied to my mother for several years about the affair, and now was in the best show in town. I had car problems. I forgot I had an audition. I didn't have enough money for gas. You would have thought that him and Rumpelstiltskin went to the same school of art. Could sell you back your own drawers, my mom would often say about him. Every year up to my 15th birthday, I learned to expect a lie from him. Lies that often left me desperate for affection, left me thirsting to be loved, and most miserably broken. Paul was the man I was always looking for. Paul would be the first man to break my heart. I never had a close, solid relationship with Paul. I could never understand him. I could never comprehend how someone could use the term love so carelessly. But as I got older, I began to understand that the same man who said he loved me left physical scars on my mother, drove her nearly insane to a point that she spent a weekend in a psych ward, left my mother to raise 2 black men in a world much like the wild safaris of Africa, except he would always be the hunter and the people he loved were the game. If that were love, I would never comprehend its meaning. I would ask my mother ritually why Paul could never keep his word. My mother would always reply that hurt people, but the response never seemed to set well with me. The truth of the matter was that Paul wasn't good with handling delicate things. He would break my mother and then proceed to break me. I was the kid that Paul did not want. I am the child that Paul never wanted. I am the overly feminine, fat, cisgendered, queer black man that the queer community often does not want. But I have always wanted and needed someone to want me, even if it meant for just 5 minutes. I wanted someone to love me the way that Paul never could. Thank you.